like being able to have customers call in, be able to look up things through the telephone. They can actually input, either voice commands or dial tone, pushing the buttons, and have that all kind of work and interact with your website. So how exactly do you add the Vonage Voice API to a Drupal website? Well, we do have just regular PHP SDK. It's one of the six main languages that we support, including Ruby, Python, .NET, Node.js, and I'm forgetting one, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But PHP is one of the main ones that we actually support. Earlier this week, we actually launched a new package called Vonage/Vonage_Drupal. This is a bespoke Drupal module. Right now works with Drupal 9, and it provides the admin interface for configuring your Vonage credentials. But also the big part of it is it actually creates and automatically injects our SDK into the service layer with Drupal. So you can actually use these in your controllers, all that kind of stuff. We are working on SMS gateway integration, so that way you can get it integrated with those kind of things. But right now it actually makes it much easier to get set up and going in there. So exactly how are you going to do that? Easiest way is to just require it through Composer. With Drupal 8 and Drupal 9, we have the full power of Composer at our disposal. So you can just go ahead and Composer require it. It'll download a whole bunch of stuff and then just enable it. So here I've got it enabled through Drush. You can go through the extend page, turn it on, all that. But that's the Drupal side that gets us set up there. On the Vonage side, we need to actually create an application. We use public-private key authentication for our voice API. So I'm going to use our Nexmo application. Nexmo and Vonage are exactly the same company. Nexmo is the platform that powers all of our APIs. So we can create a new application here. So I'm just going to call it Drupal test. I'm going to give it a key file that'll save the private key to our local machine, set up the public key on our server so that way we can actually authenticate everything back and forth. Since our applications have multiple things that they can do because we have multiple APIs, this one I'm just going to set the capabilities to voice as opposed to like our messages system or our RT system, which is our real-time communications for like IP messaging and things like that. And then two important URLs are the answer URL and the event URL. Through most people use our voice API through a series of callbacks. So when the user does something, it'll send an HTTP request to your web application instead of you having to like necessarily connect via a WebSocket and do things real time or send a bunch of commands back to Vonage. We will contact you and see what you want to do. So that's the answer URL. Here I've just got an ngrok tunnel set up so it can actually hit my local machine. And the event URL sends various events, especially if you're doing like outbound calls or conference calls, when people connect, when they hang up, if they answered, like it went to answering machine, that kind of stuff. Not really going to use the event URL for this, but the answer URL, that's going to be our launching point for what we're going to do. So if you log into Drupal and go to the configuration page, you can go to the Vonage API settings under system. You can enter in your Vonage API key and secret. For the voice API, we actually don't need that. We're more interested in the application details. So when you run that app create command from just a second ago, it'll give you an application ID. You can paste that in here, and then you can take the private key it generates, throw it in here as well. If you want to test out anything, we've got some nice convenient tabs up there. If you want to do voice testing, you can go over there, pop in your telephone number, a telephone number that Vonage has already given you as the from, and then a little quick message, and it'll send you a little text to speech thing to make sure everything's all set up. So you can test that all directly from here. But we can paste those in, save the configuration, and that actually sets up our client. We can actually start using it right away. So there we go. How does the voice API work? When your customer has a phone, you've got a website, we sit kind of in the middle there. So when your customer makes a telephone call, it actually calls Vonage. Vonage answers the telephone call, and then we will dispatch an HTTP request off to you. Your website takes that request, which has like the to, the from, the connection information for it, and then decide what it wants to do. In this case, we're gonna give them a voice prompt and then send that back. You just communicate back with us by sending, by replying with JSON. So your Drupal module just needs to output a JSON response and send that back out. Our SDK helps you be able to build that JSON response, but you can also build them by hand if you'd like. But then that JSON response is interpreted by Vonage, and then we do something back, whatever you asked for, back to the customer. That could be asking for user input, asking him to say something, just a simple text to speech, then we shut off. And then this kind of happens back and forth until your call is done. So in this case, we can set that up. If we run Nextman numbers, we can get a telephone number, and then we can link that back to our account using numbers update. So I'm going to take a phone number, going to link it to this. I've already done that on my demo app, but that way somebody could call in, that'll be routed to the application. The application will be routed back to your website. So the way this all works is actually fairly simple. So if you set up a custom module, and in this case, this would be like a method on one of your controllers, this is linked through the routing.yaml to webhooks voice answer, which matches up to a lot of clicks. This answer URL back here. So whatever you set up here for your answer URL, you can set up as your routing.yaml. First thing we're gonna do is get that call information. We have some convenient methods to be able to pull that up and package that up into an object. And then I'm actually gonna find the user by the telephone number. I just enabled the telephone module, added that as a custom field to the user profile. And when the telephone call comes in, we can find the user by that telephone number by just doing an entity query. That's all I'm doing in there, really just kind of boring code. Then the next thing we do is we generate what's called a control object. This control object is either a single or multi-step thing that you want to have happen. So in this case, we're going to add a talk action. And it's just going to say hello, whatever your display name is. Press 1 to change your username. This is totally insecure. I would never actually do this in real life, but it's really cool for a demo. But we'll take that, say, give them a prompt to do something. And then we're actually going to add a second action, which is called an input action. So we're going to enable DTMF, which is just pushing the buttons, like press 1 for this, press 2 for that. Tell it we just want 1 digit, and then set an event hook URL. After the answer URL, you can route to any other route in your system. So in this case, we're going to have another setup in our routing.yaml file that goes to webhooks voice step 1. That URL gets hit, we'll match that up to something else in a controller. And then we just output a brand new JSON response, return that. Our NCCOs automatically serialized to arrays, but you can go ahead and do that to array and have that all work. Then what should happen is once the user pushes a button, that gets sent back to us as an input event. So in this case, instead of getting an answer event, we'll pull out an input event. Same basic thing, look up the user. We'll check to see what digits they pushed. If they pressed 1, we'll ask them to say their name. And then we will send that off to a different event webhook, but ultimately same idea. And then if they press anything else, we'll just end the call right there. And then if they pressed 1 and then they entered a name, or they set a name, we will get the next set of input. In this case, it would actually be speech. We can do automatic speech recognition through the voice system. It's pretty neat. Do the same lookup from based on the telephone number. This time though, since we have the user, we'll set their name to whatever they said in the call. Save that off. So standard user manipulation, and then tell them, here's your new username, and then we'll go from there. So if everything works, I should have, and you should see, this is my local Drupal install, and I will refresh this just to show that it is live. So here I've got my admin username, and then down here, if I can scroll down and show this without my telephone number, yeah, it's a demo number. We have the telephone number field all set up. And if I do this correctly, I should be able to dial the number I have linked.
Below admin, press 1 to change your display name. Please say your new display name.
Chris.
Your new username is Chris. Please use that to log in.
Cool. So then that goes through, ends that call. And then if I refresh my page now, my username has changed to Chris. So obviously that's probably not functionality specifically that you would want to open up to users, but it does show that it's actually fairly easy to get that wired in and immediately start working with things in the Drupal system. So if you have any questions, we are over in the exhibitor area. I will be there throughout the rest of the day. So feel free to pop in. We can talk to you about any of our products. The Drupal module exposes all of the different APIs that we do have. So it's not limited to just voice. You can do SMS. You can do the programmable voice. We can help you get set up if you want to do like the video, things like that. But if you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly. You can reach out to me directly on Twitter as @DragonManTank. You can reach out to our developer team as @VonageDev. And if you have any questions, of course, you can always email me directly, chris.tankersley@vonage.com. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and I hope you enjoyed this little demo. Like I said, stop by, come talk to us. We would love to speak with you. Thank you.